users on here, and hopefully we can accommodate the thirst for our new users and our experienced users on all things about measurement, as we kind of cover square footage, area totals, and specifically with a specific focus on the measuring modes, a quick overview of 1 and 2, and then a deeper dive into measure mode 3. Before we get started, Andrew, I gotta know, just for fun and games, just to get us started, because we don't get to interact a lot because we often work remote with each other. Just tell me, what's your favorite video game, and convince me why I should try it.
Video game. I have been lately playing Baldur's Gate. It is a new game that has just been released. I like it because it is a story-driven game, and I love storytelling. So it's a lot of fun if you enjoy your choose your own adventure books, except in an interactive format. And anytime you play it, it's never the same. So it's a lot of fun.
Cool.
How about you?
I love that. I'm older than you, so I hate to be boring, and I would get out my Pong stories or my Atari 2600 stories, but I play Halo. So I play on an Xbox, and that's a classic game that I'm proud to have passed along to my son.
It's an excellent game.
Excellent game. So today's, thank you for that, Andrew. Thank you for sharing. It's always great to know a little bit of personal stuff about who you work with, and I will hit you up on where I can find that game. All right, let's jump into the hard part, the work part of today, which is teaching and doing a masterclass all about the method of measurement. So, Andrew, I'm going to pass the hard stuff on to you.
Sounds good.
And before I do that, I'm just going to highlight, when you use your Planix Pro, whether it's in real estate, insurance, or construction, or one of the various other industries that people are using it in, one of the very common questions that get asked through the sales process, through the training process, through the support process is, how do I find all my measurements? And how do I measure, will my bed fit there? What's the length of that wall because I need a new countertop? What's the height of that wall? So the measurement aspect from the tours or from your iGUIDE properties, whether it be the LiDAR data or the virtual tour or the drawings and what have you, one of the key aspects is obviously this world of measurement. And measurement comes in a variety of different formats with iGUIDE. And hopefully we're going to not just take a shallow dive today, we're going to take a deep dive into a few of them. And if you don't get your measurement question or issues resolved today, you can reach out to our support channel or Andrew and I, and we will make sure we get those addressed, because in a target session that's supposed to be 30 to 35 minutes long, we obviously can't cover everything. But for new users, we hope to give you some guidance on where to find things. And hopefully this is that overview of whether you just want to do basic measurements off of your navigation map, more advanced measurements off of the 3D tour, or just property summary dimensions, how to go after that. Well, now that's what this whole masterclass is about. We hope you leave here and then play it back if you need to take a deeper dive into any of those areas. So that's enough of me rambling. Andrew, I'm going to hand it off to you. And I think we'll go through this in that same order of, let's highlight the basic method of measurements, which is, reviewing of things on the property, and the iGUIDE report. And then we can sequence our way into the measurement modes.
Yeah, it sounds good. I'll jump right in. I'm going to drag over some windows to my other screen here. And Rob, if I get off track, feel free to rope me back in.
Okay, sounds great.
Let's jump in. All right. So here I have an example of a drafted floor plan. And I've created a couple of versions here. So we've got a main floor example as if it was shot by a typical residential real estate. So, kind of a bare minimum amount of panos. And this is enough to get your floor plan drafted, whether it's standard or premium, and you can utilize measurement modes 1 and 2, but measurement modes 2 and 3 are not really taken into consideration when it comes to the camera placement. And I'll elaborate on what I mean by that when I jump into showing you main floor measurement mode 3. But I'm going to toggle between the two, and I'm also going to show examples of a basement, and that will also help to highlight these points. So jumping in with measurement mode 1.
Andrew,
Yep.
Before we go into the measurement modes, let's go through the property summaries. Let's go through like the ruler and the product detail, like the property details and where to get summaries and things like that?
Sure. So once your iGUIDE's been drafted, you'll be sent an iGUIDE view report. It will look like this. You'll likely have an image here, as most people will have a gallery. You'll have your floor plans that you can download, both feet, meters, and you'll have the option to download the iGUIDE for offline purposes. The offline iGUIDE can also be used with the measurements, so you can host this on your own server or an external hard drive or on your local machine. You don't have to use our site, but the measurements still continue to function from there. Going further down on the iGUIDE report, you'll have room measurement details, and that will highlight each room, the measurements. So, your total square footage, the length and width. And if you've got any rooms hidden, they will not appear here, but you can always enable them, and I'll show how to do that briefly so that they can appear on the property details in the iGUIDE report. So jumping back over here to the edit default view, we're going to go to our edit page. We're going to scroll down, and there's this little pencil marking. If you uncheck this box, these details will not show up in the iGUIDE report. They will not be in the details panel either. So if ever you're looking for a room and you don't see the details, you want the measurements, just confirm that this is checked off if you want to see them. Make sure you click OK. And also you have the option to show the room area and the room dimensions. You can choose one or the other, or both, or neither. You click Save.
Has that come up in a support call before, where people not wanting to see the room dimensions or a specific room dimension?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you'll also see the details listed here. So in the virtual tour, when this is sent out, someone is viewing the virtual tour, they can click on the Details tab here, and they'll be able to view the room measurements and the floor area information, both in feet and meters. They can download the PDF floor plan, both, again, feet and meters, and that will allow you to view each room. Again, if you've disabled certain rooms, they will not appear here, so you'll have to enable them, save, and then you can download a new report or floor plan if you do want to see them represented on a floor plan.
Okay, I'm going to be that annoying person.
No, ask away.
Go back to details.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see method of measurement underlined there on the right-hand side, floor area information.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So that is just our iGUIDE method of measurement. So how we calculate our floor plans. They're based on our developed standards that are influenced by Alberta's RMS, but we also allow you to use ANSI measurement standards. So when you look at your iGUIDEs, you'll see the measurement standards here on your iGUIDE. You'll have the option to drop down this menu here and select RMS or ANSI. If you're in Alberta, you need to use RMS. Otherwise, you need to check with your local regulations and see which measurement standard you do need to use. Typically, most people are going to be using ANSI outside of Alberta.
So if I am outside of Alberta, what is it? What does our system default to? ANSI?
So the system default is going to show, I believe it's RMS, but what you can do is in each of your profiles, and you can feel free to do this while we're talking here, you can go to your settings, and in your iGUIDE defaults here, you can actually scroll down and you can actually change your measurement standard to whichever one you want to use for your area. And then at the very bottom, of course, you would save. That means that any new iGUIDE that you create will follow that new standard.
So none of the industry settings like residential, commercial, insurance have any bearing on measurement standard. It's what you determine what you need for your geographical environment.
We give you that flexibility to make sure that you adhere to whatever regulations you have to in your area. That's correct.
Cool.
And if you want more information, of course, we do have hyperlinks that you can navigate to on your own time and review them as you need to.
So this is a case where their square footages would be different or might be different on how they're displayed and calculated. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to take a deeper dive than that.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah. So,
but each user needs to be aware of what setting they should be using because it could impact their results.
Absolutely. Yes. So confirm your iGUIDE defaults, make sure everything is set the way that you need it to be, and make sure you save your settings when you're done. So I'll close that off. Yep, go ahead.
There's a question in the chat. I'm curious for my agents that do not want a virtual walkthrough, if there's a quick way to disable it while showing disable the 3D tour. Again, that's a
So
little bit different than, let's get through the measurement mode stuff and then we can come back to that, Fidel.
yeah. Okay, so keeping on track with the measurements, let's jump right into measurement mode 1. Sound good to you, Rob?
Yeah, so let's just again bring it back to a high level. Why do measurement modes exist, Andrew? So that you can take measurements in your tour for a variety of different reasons. And don't think of it beyond that. That's all what they're for. And because there are so many different situations, whether it be through Radex, whether it be through a drafted plan, you're going to want different tools for different scenarios. So Andrew's going to go through the 3 different measurement modes that are available today and why they're different. And then again, a deeper dive on measurement mode number 3. So go ahead, Andrew.
Perfect. That's a good summary. So for measurement mode 1, you'd want to click on the ruler here. So let's say we're in our basement. We're using our example as if this was a residential real estate shoot. So they took, a number of panels to ensure we have enough data, but no additional panels. So this is great for measurement mode 1. You would click on the ruler here. Yes, you're going to see a 1. If you click on it again, you're going to see the other options. In this instance, we only want to use 1, and that's going to allow us to draw on the actual floor plan. Now, what I like to do is click on this little magnifying glass and zoom in. This is going to allow you to zoom in on the wall that you want to measure. So let's just say we wanted to measure this along here. And you just simply left click, drag your point to the ending point, and then you release once you're at the spot where you feel like you would like to end your measurement. And now you'll have your measurements along the walls. You can do this along multiple walls. You can create multiple measurements. So for example, I want to create a measurement along this window here. We can certainly do that. And this is just a quick way while you're on the go, whether you're on your iPad, iPhone, laptop, where you can drag these measurements rather quickly and drop some very, on the fly measurements. So, if someone's ordering materials, you can just give them these quick measurements. If you wanted to jump into measurement mode 2, this is where things get a bit more complicated.
So Andrew, just a question on 1. They aren't permanent measurements that you close the iGUIDE, you come back, these are gone, correct?
That yes, absolutely. So if I switch to a different measurement mode, you're going to lose all these. So what I would recommend is you either screenshot them, very easy to do on your phone, or just note them down somewhere, but you will lose them if you change. So if I were to go to measurement mode 2, you're going to notice that all of these numbers that I've put all that hard work into, they're going to disappear. They're gone now.
Is there a relationship? But it's like, go back and do another measurement mode 1 for me.
Yep.
So if you just do the click along that wall, so like what you did. So just to clarify, Mr. Bouchard in the chat window asked a question, and I think it's just illustrating that as he's dragging that line across the screen, you can see the red dial in the 3D tour moving with that dimension and showing you where you're going to be dropping that. So it's a visual indicator of where you're going to be taking those measurements between the way you've dragged it on the map.
Exactly. And that's why the visuals are crucial. Some people will shoot a property with the cap on, and we cannot use that data. It's useless to us and to yourself.
So hopefully that answered Mr. Bouchard's question. So let's, I think that's a good overview of measurement mode 1. And how now let's do a quick example of 2, and then how we can, and then the deeper dive into number 3.
All right. So jumping right into number 2, then this is where things get a little bit more complex when it comes to on-site capturing. So if I press number 2, you're using the Planix, you're going to notice that you're going to have this little darkened area here, and it goes all the way around. That is your theta. That's the ends of the theta. So it's being stitched together. So when you're placing your camera, you're going to want to make sure that the lens is facing the object that you want to measure. So for measurement mode 2, which we use to measure ceiling height, I'm going to draw a line along the wall in which I'd like to measure. So it looks similar to number 1, except we're not measuring the wall like that. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom in, and we're going to actually draw a point on the floor. You're going to see a little red dot, and then a second point near the ceiling. and then you get your measurement. Now it's going to prompt you with a notification giving you a measurement uncertainty. And this is influenced by, how far away the system is, the quality of the laser data, how many panels you have, and also if we were to do that same measurement, but in the darkened area, the measurement uncertainty would be increased. So when you are placing the system, it's crucial to keep in mind where the lens is pointing. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Mike Kavanaugh asked a question in the chat just about, can you lock the dim line in ortho or keep it perpendicular to where you first clicked? And I think the answer is no, you cannot.
Correct, you cannot.
And then there was a question in the chat window about, is it possible to include current BOMA measurement in the measurement method? No, we don't do BOMA calculations. We don't do usable areas or anything like that. That's a whole different standard because there's like 6 or 7 different BOMA classes. So we do not do that today. It's just something that you'd have to take and add, find a provider to do that for you. We do not do that. We're just providing the property summaries. So that's a great example of 1 and 2, which have been around for a long time and work kind of really well in what I call a minimal survey, like you've shown there, one shot, like one scan in the room.
Exactly, yes. So if I were to switch over now to measurement mode 3, do you feel that was enough for measurement mode 2? I can hold off and do another. Yeah. So measurement mode 3, this one is going to require a second pano in order to utilize this option. So again, this example was shot without the consideration of measurement mode 3. So the placement of the system was not done intentional. So in this instance, we're lucky. The lens is pointing where we want to measure. And let's say we want to measure the television here. We're going to say it's a window, for example. We're going to draw our first point. So you double left click on the first point, and you're going to double left click on the second point to measure. You're going to have these question marks come up. This is where we need to now navigate to another panel that can see the same location. In this instance, it's way back here. This is not ideal. I'm going to show you another example that is ideal. So this is blacked out or darkened. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to attempt to do this measurement. And our measurement uncertainty is quite large because it's in the darkened area. It doesn't really know. So I'm going to show you an example of proper placement.
So I'm sure if you've got a Planix Pro, if you haven't experienced that, consider yourself lucky. It's a hard lesson learned when you've only got 1 or 2 shots in a room and you weren't being conscious of your camera orientation.
Exactly. So you'll see here on the floor plan, in the previous example, there was only the 1 pano in this area. This one has 1 here and 1 here, both facing this wall. It's got 1 here and 1 here, also facing this wall. These 2 here are facing this wall, and that would increase the amount of measurement options we're going to have available, and I'll navigate to those momentarily. So we started our first scan with this. We're going to move over to here because you want this scan to look at this point and this scan to look at this point. So I'm going to move over here, and you can see it's not in the darkened area. The lens was intentionally pointed at the object. Double left click, double left click. And so now we have our measurement, shows us our uncertainty, and we can feel pretty confident in those numbers. If, for example, I were to have used this pano here, the darkened area would not really be beneficial for us. This pano was placed with this wall in mind, and of course this one.
So it's not, I think you've taken a lot of scans in a small area to get the point across. Yep. But I don't think you'd need 6 or 8 or 10 in that room. Correct. But it's certainly more than 2.
Absolutely.
And I think you're going to touch on this a little bit more later, but I'll just bring it up as a discussion point. When you want to use measurement mode 3 for, let's say, construction or facility management purposes, you've got to have a different set of lenses on and actually take a few more shots and be very conscious of your camera orientation, correct?
Absolutely. I would note that this scan that I'm currently pointing at and this scan here, those were not necessary. These two would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
This is great, and this is great because these two panos would be able to see this point excellent in an excellent fashion, and as well as this area.
Okay. Were you going to show how you can do these with Radix as well?
Absolutely. So same concept, same space. This is our example with only the one pano. So it would give us the same result as before. The ideal scenario would be the same amount of panos. And we can back out of here a little bit. And again, these front ones are not really necessary. They're just extra, but you'd want to use this first one here. And I'll go ahead and do that quickly. Measurement mode 3. You pick your starting point. You can zoom in. A bit of an object in the way, but that's okay. Here we go.
Okay, cool. So I don't have to have a drafted property to be able to do at least measurement mode, any of the measurement modes, right?
Correct. You can do a radix. So if you want to get into a property, scan it, and then submit it and have it processed rather quickly, radix is perfectly fine if you want to use measurement 1, 2, or 3. So if you don't need a drafted, radix is an excellent option for you. And the processing time on a radix is incredibly fast.
Yeah, I mean, we're not here to talk about all the different products.
Right.
Just Radix is a product where if you don't want something drafted, you just want the white outline LiDAR for construction monitoring purposes, then it's a great tool and quite economical. And you can still use all the measuring modes available to you. Yeah, keep going, Andrew. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No. I encourage it. So we have a question from Eric. Why would I do all this manually instead of having your drafters make the measurements? So if you're having our drafters draft your property, you're getting all the measurements. That's fine. You don't need to do anything. You don't even need to use the on-screen measurements if you don't want to. But there is value in using this on-screen tool. So for example, if you want to plan out, in this instance, ordering drywall, well, you can send these measurements by quickly just grabbing measurement mode 1 and dragging along the wall and say, well, this wall is X amount of feet. You can send that to your contractor and they're going to be able to order materials based on the measurements you provide them without having to arrange for them to come to your home, manually measure it, write it on a piece of paper, lose that paper, and have to come back again and measure it again.
Or as simple as, you're absolutely right. The floor plan has the dimensions. It has the room dimensions. You can pick all that in measurement mode 1 without any problems. But if you want to measure spaces in the vertical plane, well, none of that is shown on the left-hand side. So if you can get your ceiling dimensions in a couple of different ways. But if you wanted to measure a vertical wall, a half wall, where objects are in the room or what material you're going to need, and you need to go on the vertical plane, then this is a tool that many people use to do that. So that really only applies to measurement mode. Oh, no, I guess you could use 2 for doing a vertical measurement as well, like you showed with your floor to ceiling calculation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is just faster and maybe cheaper than sending my panos. I'm not quite sure what your interpretation of that is, Rob, from Eric.
Is there? I was just looking at the chat window. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so
it is faster and cheaper to have us process things for you.
So if you are looking to just measure in the scene, Radix might be a great tool for you. There are lots of people that do, if they're doing remodeling projects or construction phases or this and that, Radix is a great option, and simply using the measurement tools. And then when a project's finished, they typically scan again and then get the floor plan drafted. So there's a variety of solutions out there that we're more than happy to talk about because everyone uses the product in such unique different ways. So yeah, if you'd like to know more, Eric, reach out to us after. We're more than happy to show.
This is
correct.
Yeah.
In the context of Radix, not a standard package. No, I mean, all 3 measurement modes really work the same across a drafted or a non-drafted property. You just get a little bit better visual on measurement mode 1 when something's been drafted, because you get a more detailed outline of the room. But in 2 and 3, you're just, defining a plane and projecting it to that plane, or going through the motion of the 3D scene is identical. There's no difference between the way you use measurement mode 3, whether it's been drafted or not. There's no difference at all. It's just, do you need measurements beyond the horizontal floor plan plane of your property? And that's what measurement mode 3 allows you to do, or take dimensions that the drafters didn't draft. Like, we don't, if there's shelves or something, it's just a matter of context and what you're trying to do. So Andrew's obviously flying through a bunch of examples. Maybe let's just take a step backwards and kind of revisit this, because we got sidetracked a little bit. Yep. But whether you get a property drafted, standard or premium, or just rate X, you can use all of these measurement modes. So where we started at the front of the presentation on all of your property summary, your square footage summary, your room summaries, obviously those are related to something being drafted, a drafted property for you. But in the context of measuring modes, it really doesn't matter. You can use it in either way.
Exactly.
Okay,
I'm just kind of adding this as you're informing people. So there we go. So radix and standard.
So Don asked, Mr. Bouchard asked a question about bidding on projects. Absolutely. So when people are trying to do capital planning on a building or construction estimating, we all go on site with our tape measures. We all go on site and document our properties. A lot of people in this AEC vertical go out and shoot the iGUIDE once, but don't shoot it as a residential real estate property. They take those extra 2 and 3 shots per room, so that you can look at properly look at the angular displacement of the camera and have clear visual lines to the key geometries, so you can do all those measurements after for bidding purposes. You're absolutely right. It's a huge part of many of our customers to go in, shoot the property once, come back, look at the iGUIDE, do estimates, whether it be wall area calculations for paint, remodeling calculations and estimates on cabinetry or whatever. A big segment of our customer base uses it for that very purpose, Mr. Bouchard.
Yeah, and the speed of capture is what makes the difference too. You can capture additional properties while someone's still at the first one measuring by hand.
Yep. So Andrew, let's just continue on and maybe start summing up.
Yes. So let's see. What have we not touched on yet? We've looked at RMS. We've used the ruler. We've definitely looked at measurement mode 3, but we can do a little bit more on that if needed. Is there any spots that you feel like we've missed so far? See the questions. I'm just trying to keep up with the questions too.
Nope.
Okay. And if there's no other questions, then we'll just kind of.
We had someone sign in anonymously, and they asked, they tried to measure a window using a measurement mode 3, but it's always a question mark. So
okay, let's show that example.
Yeah, Andrew quickly showed that, but let's do it again just in case there's any other.
Absolutely. So let's pretend that this is a window, because the curtains there are closed. So imagining that this is a window, if you use measurement mode 3, so you click on your ruler, you click on the number 1 and it shows you the rest of the options. You click on 3. When you first start with your first point, so we're going to zoom in on the image. We're going to double left click, gives you number 1. We click again, gives you number 2. You're getting these question marks because it's requiring that you navigate to another panel that can see the same object. So I'm going to navigate now to this panel in the same room. You can see the same object. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to double left click on the same first point. So my point 1 was here and my point 2 was here. So I have to start with point 1 again. And then it can go to point 2 and gives us a measurement. Now I'm going to do that again, but I'm going to do it incorrectly. so that you can see what happens. So if I go to measurement mode 3, and I start with this point, I'm going to go over here, and I navigate to my next panel, and I go to the incorrect spot first. It's not consistent enough. That's interesting. We just used it. Okay, so it's requiring that I use the first starting point. Okay, well, if I had started with the wrong point, it would have given me an error anyways. So you start thinking of it like this: A, B, or 1, 2, 1, 2, really. Does that answer your question? Who was it that was? Just want to make sure that they don't get kind of left out here.
I think the question was around
It's always a question mark.
Why it was a question mark, and it comes up as a question mark because it's telling you you have to go to the second position to complete the triangulation.
Yes. So one last time, I started here. You start your measurement. You're going to get a question mark. It tells you up here, switch to another panoramic shot. And we're going to do that with this one over here. And we're going to use the same starting point. And we get our height.
Okay. Clint, I know you asked a question about the ESX and the window placement. Andrew, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I'd have to get back to you unless you know the answer, Andrew, or like if a window is offset from the LiDAR plane, how is it drawn in the ESX file?
That's a great question for our drafting team, or for someone who's specialized with ESX. I'm gonna abstain from answering that one for now.
That is a great question, Clint.
It is.
I don't know the answer to, but we will find out.
And if you don't hear from us, a support ticket will give you an official answer, and you can keep that documentation for yourself if ever you get asked it again.
Never thought about that. Like if you've got a skylight about 10 feet off the wall, do we draw it in? I don't know. Or whatever. Well, look, Clint, so I apologize. I can't answer your question right away. I'm unclear as how to measure the ceiling height. I know you covered it, but I missed the specifics. So why don't we do an example of like you did in the basement with the ceiling height, Andrew?
Yeah. So to do ceilings, you need to navigate to measurement mode 2. You click on the ruler, click measurement mode 2, and you're going to want to make sure that, again, you've considered the darkened area. Try to close this off here. Now what you do is, what I would recommend you do is you use the magnifying glass and zoom in on the wall. You're going to draw your line here. So we're going to measure this wall. So I'm going to draw my line along the LiDAR data here. So again, this can be done on a standard, premium, or radix. So we've now drawn that in. And then I'm going to draw on the bottom point here. Zoom in a little bit. We got our first point, and we can go up to the ceiling. I feel like I'm going to have this slightly off here. There we go. And it gives us our measurement uncertainty. So you draw your line on the floor plan itself. You do your start point, double left click, you get your first bullet, and then you move up to the top and you double left click. If you need to undo, you can. You simply click that little arrow here. It brings you back to your previous position. Because let's just say, for example, I click here by mistake. Well, I can undo that. And I can undo it again if I want to change my starting point. So if I want to know the floor to the top of this bookshelf, for example, I can get a rough estimate and say, okay, it's about that. I should probably get less of an angle. Does that answer? Yep.
Yes.
Yes. So let me show actually one example I've seen in the past where someone was getting an off measurement, and it's because they were drawing their line like this. You need to have it along the wall. So if it's drafted, you need to follow along the wall that's drafted. If you're using the radix, follow along the laser data. If you draw your line outside of that, the measurement will not be accurate.
And and then the smart thing to do would be use your corners so that your start point and end point are along the as square and perpendicular as they could be.
Exactly.
I know Andrew's great, but he's not great drawing a perfect vertical line.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So to answer, I'm unclear as to why we are drawing a line along the wall. Oh, you're setting a plane. That line that you're drawing on the navigation map, whether it's radix or drafted, you're kind of setting a plane. Like you're kind of saying this is the plane or the wall or the face that you're going to be projecting all these measurements onto, so that they're not just being projected way off into space, because you are just picking on a photo. So you're basically setting the depth of those pics and controlling that depth element so you get a more accurate measurement. So that's, you're drawing a line in measurement mode 2 on that wall to set a plane to say all these pics are going to be on that plane or on that wall. Hopefully that answered your question, Jeanette. If not, let us know. So just think of it as you're picking 2 points and you're basically saying, I want all the measurements on that wall or on that face.
Mm-hmm.
Greg asked or made a statement about, and the big lesson that I learned about on this about 2 months ago was the importance of offset. Andrew, why don't you talk a little bit about, you can't just have the camera right up against the wall, and how important the offset element is in addition to the orientation of the camera.
That's right. So there was a reason why these panels were taken. So these are too, well, they're not necessarily too close, but you don't want to have it too close to an object with the Planix. You'll see here, the darkened area is a little close. So you want to have, let's imagine for a moment that this is a window. You want to have the camera angle kind of at a 45-degree angle pointed at the object itself. And then when you have your secondary panel, you want to have it kind of counterclockwise pointed at the same object on a 45-degree angle. If that didn't kind of throw everything off there, I see you're kind of looking at me there. So I'll give an example. This panel here, it's looking in this direction, and this panel here should be looking kind of like this. So you want to have them pointed almost in a crisscross to form a triangle to optimize measurement mode 3. When you're placing them, you don't want to have it too close to the object. Now, Rob, if you have any specific numbers, that would be welcomed. But as far as the placement goes, for an object like this, these panels far back here are more than sufficient. They don't need to be as close as these ones. These could have been moved back perhaps another couple feet.
2 meters, 2 yards.
There you go.
If you want good measurements, you need to try and be 2 yards away. And then you need to have it triangulated, like a good, so that the camera can see the measurements or what you might be measuring. With both lenses, both orientations. So you can't be up close. You've got to have a standoff. That standoff distance is really important for doing this accurately. So yeah, you can't just, if you're in a tight space, like with renovations on kitchens, it's really difficult, and it may not work for you on a radix when you're just drafting or trying to measure mode 3 up close. You may have to get it drafted and take measurements off the cabinets and do your best to what you can. If you don't have that standoff distance, you're going to be increasing error a little bit. So try and be not 5 meters away, but 2 meters away is kind of the optimal one for your orientation, or sorry, your offset.
Okay, and then Andrew, that positioning.
Yeah, that's been great. And your positioning and your offset is everything. And I think if you use a couple of these takeaways with the property summaries, the square footage, and where to find all that stuff, and then go through the different measuring modes, I think you should be able to use these things really well. And then between the measuring modes, just be very conscious of whether it's a radix or a drafted property. Measure mode number 3, be very conscious of your angles and your offsets. And then, as Andrew very much at the beginning started, you can turn those attributes off if you don't want to see property summaries on your finished reports. And there were 2 questions that we had to get back to people on. One was on the 3D view, and the other one on the height displacement of windows on the ESX. So I think we're going to kind of close it out there. Andrew, thank you for preparing all this. It's been a wonderful tour of your house, and we appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If we haven't answered your questions today, please feel free to reach out and contact our support team. We're more than happy to help you and walk you through some of these privately if you need some additional help or guidance. Our next masterclass, I keep wanting to say webinar, but our next masterclass is on November the 9th. It's going to be on DWG files with one of our lead drafters. That's an excellent opportunity to learn about the drafting process and how our DWG files are structured. So our usual hosts won't be back from vacation yet, but after November the 9th, they'll be returning. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to close out there. Andrew, thank you for all your prep work and explaining the technical details behind this. And thanks for everyone for coming, no matter where you are on the planet. And we will see you again in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.